My name is John Richie. I am the director of the film Sharpens, the documentary that started the series.
My name is Juan, and I'm the director of the other semi-country club, the one about the delivery workers in Brooklyn.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm the writer-director and one of the producers for No Witnesses.
I did the Resourceful, the robot one.
Hi, I'm Anthony Morigerato. I wrote, directed, and co-choreographed To Everything I Love.
If podcaster in the audience was too shy to get up like he's supposed to be in this show.
Yeah, thank you. Generously, I'm being added to the panel. I'm one of the podcasters who submitted a podcast called Speaking with Students. So I appreciate you being up here with us.
Before I begin with asking questions to any of the audience, do you have questions first beforehand? Yes.
The 700 Club, how did you kind of come across them? Or did you find them yourself or hear about them? Or?
This is actually like my thesis film for an MFA that I did at the City College, and I was planning originally to make a fiction film that had a protagonist that was a delivery worker, and I wanted to introduce some like hybrid, like reality documentary between the in the fiction, and I wanted to have these guys be like, surrounding my main character in one of the scenes, taking a break, doing the delivery work, and complications, COVID, this was like, Omicron times when this happened, and I don't know, it got very complicated for the fiction one, and I ended up like, oh, I'm not going to do this, it's too much, and I just spent like a few months with these guys, just going there to visit them, and this is how this film happened. It was kind of accidentally, but I'm very happy with the result.
How did you find them?
I was trying to make a fiction film about delivery work,
Great.
and I wanted to have them in the film. And
Okay.
they ended up being the film instead of just a little part. Yeah.
Okay. For Iron Sharpens Iron, what's your connection to the community of Iron? Was it Ironton?
Ironton?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the film, I made it with the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. And so initially I was tasked with making a film about Black Women's Parish, and y'all probably don't know much about, like, as far as like South Louisiana. I'm guessing most people here don't, but Black Women's Parish is the parish that's the last one at the mouth of the Mississippi River, and it's also one of the areas that is the most in danger as far as like land loss and climate change and all the things that people in South Louisiana are worried about, and so anyway, the film, the grant that I was given was basically, it's very kind of like the umbrella was that we needed to do a film that was about Black Women's Parish, or about a community in Black Women's. And so initially we were doing one that was like, kind of like almost like a survey of how people in the parish felt about climate change. And then COVID happened, and it kind of stalled everything, And so after starting and stopping due to COVID several times, I came across this story of this oil and gas company that was trying to build an export terminal on the grounds of an old plantation where there was slave cemeteries. And so at that time that they were talking about this story, it hadn't happened yet, it hadn't been permitted yet, and so we saw an opportunity to kind of switch gears in order to be able to try to make a film that the community could use in order to be able to kind of publicize what was going on, and to be able to leverage, hopefully be able to leverage whatever they wanted the outcome to be, So I did not have a connection at the time that I started making the film, but as far as like during the research part, I went down to Black Women's I went down to Ironton and started going to their church down there, built relationships with the pastor and with some of the community members, started talking about this issue about PLT, asked permission to document the whole process, and then that's how the story came about. And so I'm from Louisiana, and I live here now, but I still go down there to do a lot of work. So yeah, that's my connection to them.
And where are they now with, I think at the end of the film, it's expressed that there was like some bids on a railroad going through there and...
Yeah, well, so the biggest thing is that they're still recovering from after Hurricane Ida, where the community was pretty much destroyed. And it's interesting, the oil and gas company, Tallgrass, they have now tried to partner with the community in order to be able to help them rebuild. They've set up a fund for them. FEMA is no longer helping, according to the community, to rebuild. So they're taking help from where they can get it. And although, as far as that relationship they built with the oil and gas company, it's the oil and gas company is the only one that's actually offering any help. But the thing is that they're very cautious, and also a lot of people, unofficially are skeptical of what the true intent of that relationship is. Like, as far as they're very mistrustful of anybody coming in to try to help them. So it's not great, where they're at right now. So.
For no witnesses.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I loved all the films, and they were so unique in their own way. I find that comedy's difficult. It's hard to find something that makes everyone laugh, and I thought it was very successful, your film. So do you have any anecdotes, anything that you find that happened during filming that you find funny?
Well, obviously we shot through like 4 nights in a row in November, so fighting through the cold and everything like that. And at the end of the day, not having your casting crew hate you so you can make another movie. And clearly that didn't happen, so. But yeah, there was the one scene where they're getting the body out of the trunk. Originally, we were supposed to have a dummy do that, but it wasn't moving right and stuff like that. And we were just trying to look for extras. And my one friend Austin, who's in the audience right now, we've been making movies since I was very, very young, probably since in high school. So I'd go up to him like, Austin, listen, I need a body for this shot, and I don't know if you read the script, but there's a certain way they get it out. So, would you do that? And he's just like, yeah, just tell me where to go. And I'm like, right, awesome. And the behind the scenes is great because they're lining up to do it, and everyone's dying behind the scenes, and I'm just going with the straight face of my DP. It's all right, 3 thrusts, then pan.
Okay. And was it hard finding actors with comedic sensibility?
Well, some of them, obviously, the casting process, we went through, so many rounds to find the lead, but, we managed to get a good one with our lead, Drew, who's also in the audience. But I would even say the best story when we were casting was, for our cop character, my casting director and I, Nicole, we were just going through all these people, just reading of, some, hard-boiled city detective who's seen some shit, right. And then maybe 60% of the way through the auditions, we get this guy who we cast, and he just comes up and reads it like a goofy dad, and it just had us on the floor. I'm like, I don't even think we need to see anyone else. I think you got the part.
And I think it was to Everything I Love. Okay. How did that work with I found it really interesting with the choreography and how did it work. When I was looking at the credits, it looked like there were 2 people that did the choreography, and how did that work? If you can talk about a little bit about the process with the choreography.
Yeah, so I co-choreographed To Everything I Love with a former student of mine. Her name is Michaela Ryan. And we got into the studio, I would say, probably 2 months before we got into shooting. And we developed the tap dance line first. And then rhythmically, from everything that we developed rhythmically, we then tried to transpose what those rhythms would be in terms of movement for the modern dance part, that Chantel dance. So it was it's in essence creating two separate dances, a tap dance and then a modern dance, and then being able then to marry them together as a duet that would tell an abstract narrative of the relationship of the two characters. So it was about an 8-week process, I would say, in total, to put together the dance, the choreographic part for the dance sequence. And I'd just like to shout out Logan Evan Thomas, who played the AI, who played Tep, our piano playing AI. He's here.
And for each of you, if you can describe what was like the biggest challenge, you can go down the line, what was like the biggest challenge in making your films? Maybe you can start over here since I have the, I'm sorry, you said a podcast.
The podcast.
Well,
But I didn't even say my name. My name is Will
Yeah,
Andresen.
I'm sorry.
That's my bad.
Okay.
A little bit of a background. So the Astoria Film Festival has a category for podcasts, which is rare, surprisingly. But it's brand new. It's called Speaking with Students. I am an educator. And the inspiration was I've listened to a lot of education podcasts, but none of them that include the voice of students. And so the hope was to really sit with the student as they reflect on their experiences. And the episode that was nominated was a lovely student of mine named Ray, who had heavy social anxieties as a student, but not in a way that anyone would have noticed. So he talked about really feeling invisible in a high school, and not really understanding what to do with his feelings, and kind of not getting that support. But the best part about it is that he's now a social worker in a high school, who has gone back to try and look for other Rays who might be slipping by the radar. And so challenging, I think, in terms of podcast, is you select kind of a story that you think has meaning, but to improv around it, I think, is the greater challenge, because you know what might come up, but you kind of get this. I related this actually, Rob. I think one of the nights we were talking about positioning a camera, and how you might have a feeling when you position it just right, and this is the shot. I kind of get this I don't know, warm feeling when I know what's being talked about is really genuinely interesting. And so, you're trying to go that avenue that maybe wasn't intended, and use it, and then suddenly it becomes the theme of the episode, and it was unexpected, I think is kind of a beautiful challenge, but you gotta open the door when it's there. And then I just want to shout out my student who is on the podcast, who, he's not here unfortunately, but he was, we talked about maybe him coming, but he was open and honest as a 23-year-old about what he went through, and I think that's probably even harder than what I did. So, I don't know, I appreciate the chance to share. It's called Speaking with Students, and it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Probably the biggest challenge, with it, especially being a documentary film, is just that you're trying to mold a story, but then you're also it's real life as far as you can't control what happens, and so probably our biggest challenge was actually the twist of Hurricane Ida. We were literally the story is fairly, there's a lot of complexities to this whole story, and it just kept on getting more and more complex. We were 2 days before Hurricane Ida hit, we had actually finished the edit of the film, which was, it's pretty clear and cut, as far as that you have a community, historically, black descendant community that has an oil and gas company trying to figure out a way to build on their ancestral burial grounds and try to make it seem like it's trying to sugarcoat it into a way to where they would accept it, and how awful that would be. But then Hurricane Ida comes through and destroys the town, and so you're sitting there going, well, with the version that we have right now, is completely irrelevant we have to acknowledge that a hurricane came through here, right? And also, by that time too, we had run out of funding for the film, so we had to quickly figure out how to be able to include Hurricane Ida into the story. Also, another thing too was, so we film. But you know, the community of Ironton had already gone through so much. I mean, as you can see, you know, it's a bunch of elderly people that are trying to be environmental activists almost on their own behalf. You know, that they were forced into this situation. They're not people that were interested in combating, but here they were having to advocate for themselves. Then they get hit by a hurricane. It's actually the second or the third time since Katrina that they've had to rebuild their community. So, you know, another thing is that you don't want, not only did we not have the resources to really tell that story, we also didn't want to go in while this community is trying to rebuild their home and, you know, hang out and make and see, like, as far as like really, we didn't want to get in the way of their rebuilding, you know, and also another thing is that they were tired of talking to the cameras and stuff. So we had to figure out a way to incorporate that. And so you know, one of my biggest problems or issue with the film is that, you know, you're telling this story and then it gets to this point where Hurricane Ida almost went like from a storytelling element, it feels like it comes out of nowhere. But at the same time, the thing is that you had to, there's no way you could tell this story without including the fact that they were, you know, that 90% of their town was leveled, you know. So anyway, that's yeah, that's kind of the nature of documentaries sometimes.
So the hurricane kind of changed the direction.
Yeah, change the direction, and how do you include those changes, you know,
Yeah.
without rewriting the whole thing. Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for me was during the editing. Like, I was taking a lot of like freedom. I don't know, just being very free during the shooting of the film, like spending a lot of time with them, and I saw the things that I found more interesting. And I think committing to this idea of showing them as, like, trying to show them to the viewer as I was seeing them spending all this time, you know, with these workers, that, you know, trying to see the reality of how it is to work on the street every day, during the whole year, like many hours a day, and see like the hard parts, but also the sense of community that they have and how they support each other, and this kind of space that is a public space, but they make it their own, and kind of like, you know, not, I don't know, finding kind of like the balance, you know, like not being too, I don't know, not trying to like modify too much what they say, you know, trying to be objective and leave them, you know, create like a space in the film where they were the ones expressing themselves, and I was just like kind of like creating something that was hopefully entertaining to watch too, and, you know, that you could get something from. But yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge. I really enjoyed making it, so I think that was a real challenge.
Really interesting and beautiful. I just saw some of the imagery that you added on to the dialogue was very interesting. The cinematography is excellent.
Oh god, yeah, the list of things that went wrong. It's like film sets are like Murphy's Law. Just anything can go wrong, will go wrong. And obviously we had the 4 night shoots in a row, all in November. So like those were really big issues. But I would say our biggest issue was our gun not working. It was almost like Jaws.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows the story of Jaws, but they would go to set every day and it would be like, oh, the shark's not working. And almost every shot we'd lined up the gun, it wouldn't shoot, the silencer would fall off, and it's like, oh, this is the most important part of the film. Like, we can't whack anyone without a gun. So we had to do all these like creative workarounds. I even had to to get the gun, I had to like cut into a storage locker I had because I didn't have the keys with me. So I paid $100 to the dude to cut the lock only for the gun not to work. So we had to go to like an airsoft store the next day, pay $200 for a new gun, and hot glue the silencer on, but then that wasn't working. So it's like, at one point we just ended up like duct taping the silencer to the gun, and we had to like shoot it in backlight so you couldn't see the tape or anything like that.
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, that was like the most annoying thing I would say on set is the Jaws gun. Oh, there's so many outtakes.
Are they online?
No. Just sift through so much footage.
I would love to see that. For mine, it was probably time management. Doing an animation like that, there's so many parts, you know, modeling, texturing, and all that stuff. So it takes a lot. That's why like Marvel movies take forever. You know, you get like the animation stuff. I wanted to do everything myself and not like buy any assets and everything. So I kind of had to, during COVID is the perfect time to, I still want to tell a story, but you can't really get together, so I decided to kind of just tell that story. So it was like a true labor of love, so just trying to manage my time, because unlike a traditional film, which I also make, obviously, but this is kind of like, you get what you get on the day, and then you try to, mold the story together. But with this, like, you can do the shot again. You could make whatever you want forever. So it's almost kind of like the curse of too much freedom. So it's being like trying to rein yourself in to tell this story and get something done, and not spend like, 2 years making it or whatever like that. So, I had the story was clear in my mind, what I wanted to say and what I wanted to tell. So just managing my time and not getting lost in being a perfectionist about it all. It's really kind of tough to exercise in kind of like, not getting, too entrenched in things that nobody's going to care about, that only you see, those things.
I think that probably the most challenging, but also the most rewarding part about making To Everything I Love was the timing, just in general. The timing between the two dancers, one tap dancing and doing modern, was tricky to figure out. But even more tricky than that was developing the relationship between the AI and Crystal in a way that felt conversational and natural between music and dialogue. And then also having to shoot them separately and then put them together in that way as something, animation and visual effects like that, as a choreographer and a dancer, I've never done before. So that was probably the most challenging aspect of the film, was coordinating all of these disparate elements so that way hopefully they landed together to be able to tell a literal narrative and an abstract narrative. So for me, that's what I would say was the most challenging.
I meant to ask you for resource, but what's like I watched that one like several times actually, and I loved it. The animation is beautiful. So I have a couple questions. How long did it take you to do the animation? And what's the method? Like, I'm not so sure if I interpret it.
Sure,
correctly.
yeah, that's fairly abstract, I guess.
So,
but it's so basically the story is it kind of speaks to like resourceful, being full of resources, kind of an ironic title, because the idea is that it's told through the story of the robots, but the idea is that they've destroyed this planet and now they're taking off and leaving the planet, and this one robot stuck there, and so it's kind of just talking to us, and how we are just taking all these resources from this planet and not kind of caring about the outcome of it all. And so, and then at the end, when you start to, there's it's hard, you may have caught it, but there, the leaf begins to sprout again to kind of resemble the cycle that we're going through and dealing with. There's kind of like a deep meaning to it, but I just hid it in like cool robots, I guess, it took a while. It's a few months because I have a day job and other things to do. So something this complex, I can spend a month just modeling an arm, and that sort of thing. So I could have just bought it, but I had to be a control freak and make it.
Another question I had was like, what do you feel like? I think after, just as a filmmaker, that you finish filming something and then you feel like you learned something or from the process. If you were to look at what you just did you learn anything that you'd like to share from the process, whether something that you would never do or something that's a great thing? Just an open question from the process of making your films or even the podcast. I'm sorry, it's a little bit different. Well, I'll start with you.
I'm a film teacher who never created his own works. Actually, I came from a film festival that my students were in at 1 o'clock today, and then came over here.
What festival?
New Jersey Young Filmmakers Festival. They won a nice prize for the romance category. And I would say, I feel like, and the creators I'm next to may have much longer lists of creations, like years doing this. But just the process of taking a conception and taking the risk to make it into something and then publishing somewhere is kind of like is brand new to me. But I mean, some of these people were talking about high school. So I feel like one thing I learned is like, honestly, it's possible, like that you have the capacity to create something that only you brought into the universe for people to experience. And I think that's like a fascinating process. So it's appreciation for that, I suppose, for the act of creating. And I would say it was my film students who kind of inspired that and made me went, well, I need to try something myself. Yeah.
What was their movie about?
They submitted for, so they did the Montclair Film Festival and the New Jersey Young Filmmakers. They created something called First Date under the 5-minute time limit, which was one student going on a first date with another student and ignoring all of the warning signs in that other date, to the point where they're even arrested during the date. But they assume like the best of the other of the date. It's really sweet. And that was their second short film. Their first short film was called Shreds of Evidence, which is about a missing pencil sharpener within the high school that we work in. 15-minute short film on the investigation into a missing sharpener. That's the name, Shreds of Evidence. I appreciate the question.
You know, I don't have like a great answer for what I learned about the film, but I was just thinking that the thing that I probably like the most about the film, or what I've, because I struggled with making this film quite a bit for several different reasons, but we had a scholar come in and vet the film for us, and the thing that she said, and I like what she pointed to, was through the complexity of trying to tell the story, the best thing about the film is that it allowed the community's voice to really carry what that narrative was, and I feel like if we did something right, one of the things that we did right with it was that we didn't get in the way of allowing the community to tell their story, and yeah, it didn't try to mold it at all, and we just kind of like basically created the platform for them to be able to share their views and to tell their community story. So, yeah.
May I ask you a question? In your film,
Yeah.
all your films were awesome, by the way, and my nephew, Rob Bly, I'm very proud of you, all of us are. But the gentleman in your film, like, was he for real, or was he an actor? I don't think so. He was documentary. He was a very neat kind of guy, a local official that seemed to be the speaker for the community.
Oh, well, okay, so was it the heavyset gentleman?
Yeah,
called him
is he
front?
still, like,
Oh, yeah, like as far
power
as...
there?
He's still a parish rep. He's still that parish representative. So basically, the entire parish of Plaquemines, which is a parish is like a county, is roughly maybe 15,000 people, you know? And so in the same way that like that you might have like a city council, they have a parish council, and so each one of the parish is broken up into districts, and so the community of Ironton is inside Mr. LaFrance's district, and so he still is their representative. Yeah.
So you worked with him?
Yeah, like he was the one that invited me to come on the whatever the oil and gas company took them on the tour of the old grounds, and trying to figure out how they were going to do this, and also memorialize the graveyard.
So he was kind of a pretty neat guy.
Oh yeah, no, he's a yeah. I mean, and he's a really he's an interesting guy. Like as far as one of the things like Plaquemines Parish is known for, they have satsumas, which is it's an orange that came from Japan. So the parish is actually known for it. And me and him had a very long conversation about where are the best places to find satsumas. Like he's an interesting guy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
This was like, this film is actually the first documentary that I have ever done, and I think the whole thing was quite a learning experience, and how much you could make. Like most of it, I shot it like on my own with my camera and a microphone and everything. So I don't know, it's just like the story, like I learned that you can tell so many stories with, with just a few things, that, if you have the time, and you want to invest it in, showing a little something that you find interesting, or that is could be interesting for other people to discover or to represent.
I would say the biggest thing I took away was, one, filmmaking isn't easy. And then two is definitely surround yourself with the right people, because this was the 4th attempt at making the film, and the 3rd attempt was for my senior thesis, and like, I think 2 people survived the crew purge, so. And like, you're a director, like, I mean, you can only like do so much on your own, like you need to kind of surround yourself with your own little like fellowship to help you get through the journey and whatnot, so. I really give a big credit to my casting crew for really just like toughing it out and going above and beyond.
For that, I'd like to say I learned more about time management, but I think I would probably do the same thing. Yeah. But for most of the more traditional narrative stuff, my wife and I, we make films together. She's a writer, and so I think for us it's like learning to, communicate better. We're obviously very good at communicating because we're still married. And just, I don't know, like just learning to be more efficient and learning to kind of communicate with your crew a lot better. Those are things that we end up hating our films by the time we're done because you've seen it so much, and then you got to go sell it and whatever. But yeah, I think just learning about, like we do a lot of ourselves, as I'm sure everybody here does, and so learning all those positions I think are super helpful to communicate when you get to a point when you can then delegate those responsibilities out, and being able to speak the language of the sound person, even though you're not a sound person, but knowing what you can, knowing that what you need to communicate to them for them to get you what you need for the story, that sort of stuff. And I think that's mostly the stuff that we learn.
Yeah, I think on the same point, I've been tap dancing I come to this as a tap dancer of almost 35 years. And so my muscles as an artist are trained to that idea of being a tap dancer so far out here. So all the other skills that are involved in filmmaking. This particular film was really an experiment of trying to take the tap dancing back and trying to bring forward the writing and the composition musically. And I had never had a film that had spoken word in it before, so I like to working on other skills. And in making it, what it makes me realize is that I'm about 5 or 6 years into my life as a filmmaker, is that it's going to take me another 30 years to feel as comfortable as I do tap dancing in this genre. So I just look forward, I guess what I learned is that I'm looking forward to just the journey of continuing, of trying to develop and hone those skills to try to work in this medium in a way that is more expressive to tell these types of stories.
Well, and wrapping up, so we have to wrap up, can you just quickly say how we can find you, just very quickly, like what your information is, social media or anything like that? Yeah.
Sure. Will Andresen is my name. My Instagram is Rob W. Andresen. Podcast is Speaking with Students, which is on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
John Richie, and I guess my website is johnrichiefilms.com, and email address is johnrichie504@gmail.
Juan Blanco, Garcia. I'm sure you Google that and a bunch of stuff will come out. I don't think you're going to remember anything.
You can find us Vanguard Studios Official on Instagram, and you can find me on that page.
For my wife and I's film company is 73 Productions, so we were lucky enough to get that across all the socials. So.
amtapdance.com or amtapdance on Instagram. If you're into tap dance, you can follow a platform that I run called Operation Tap.
Can I ask one more question? What's the next thing for each one of you?
Oh,
What's
we
the
actually
next
need
project?
to- I'm
Quick.
sorry,
Can't
we
they say quick?
We need to get out awards
All right,
and wrap
all
up.
right.
I apologize.
Good question.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you.
Stay for a second. We just want to give you the award. awards that,
like the,
so you have?
I would love
Oh, yeah,
that
awards.
kind of one narrative.